Hello everyone. It's me. I'm just literally just checking over here to see the video is working. Hi. We're going to go over homework number 4 from ECON0002 this week. I've brought up my homework here. Hopefully that'll help. And yeah, so this homework goes over just 2 questions, and they're fairly short, so hopefully it's a bit more of a nice break from the stress of the term so far. And thankfully this is the last one we're going to be doing for this term. So hooray! So I'm just going to go through the questions and tell you guys how to roughly answer them. So let's first of all go over... hold on, I think I've got it. There we go. So we've got our first question here, market failure. Considering the 2 possible examples, so we've got investment in education, benefiting others in society, and we've got drinking alcohol disturbs the peace of others. Okay, so let's first talk about investment, okay? So we need to think about what kind of market failure investment is, explain what the consequence is going to be if you have this, if a competitive market is allocating the resources, and we want to propose a potential government intervention, right? So let's start with education, right? So with education, okay, it's a human right. Most people can agree that education is a right that people should have, right? So if you have investment into it, okay, you want to preserve the fact that it is still a right. Okay, so private investment in anything. Okay, so say I am a private investor and I want to invest in the education system. Okay, now explicitly here, a private investor is not going to know how to allocate their resources best or know what to attack first. Sure, they may have more information than the government, but right now it's not really viable to assume that a private investor would be better suited to this job than a government would, because they don't know as much as a government. But if I want to invest in education, just put my money in, that would be great, right? Just investing in education overall. Okay? However, the thing is here, education has a great external benefit, okay? Lots of people get more jobs, industries get improved, lots of external benefits. But the main problem here is that an investor wouldn't care about the external benefit. An investor would care about their private costs, right? And an investor is the one being costed here. Okay, they're putting in this large amount of money, and they're not going to see much of a benefit. This is the main thing. Hold on, I'm just going to remove my face from the screen. I'm staring at it too much. So because there's only a private benefit, because there's a private cost and an external benefit, less investors are going to invest than you'd like. Because they're like, oh, what's the point? I'm not getting anything back from this, so why should I invest? Okay, so investors wouldn't invest. It's not like... So that's the market failure here. Is that there's too little investment? Oh, hold on. You can sort of see, I haven't edited this yet, too little investment from private investors. Yeah. Now, the danger here is what happens if the market gets taken over by privatization. So I've made a little graph here showing what that would look like. Okay? So if we say have a privatized market, okay, and we're going to say we have supplies of schools, we have supplies of education, essentially. We're just going to call it schools for now. And then we've got the demand coming in from students, parents, wherever. Okay? If we have a privatized system, then we are assuming that schools in this case are a differentiated good. So they're somewhat different to each other. We're going to get different people paying for different types of education. Okay? So you can see here on the left side, this is the people who can afford education when it is supplied, right? So you've got this massive amount of supply over here. This is the number of households who actually can afford education, but past that point where it doesn't become profitable to give education to people who can't pay for it, okay, schools will just simply not supply it because it's not profitable to do so, okay? When you make education about profit, okay, it begins to sort of fall apart, okay, because you're not providing a human resource purely because it's not profitable for you to do so, which makes it kind of a moral grey in this case, because, well, it's morally bad because, you're not providing this essential resource to people, and people who can't afford things, so like lower income families who can't afford to put their kid through, $8,000 worth of school every year, won't be able to afford an education for them, and that isn't good when it's determined by market mechanics, okay? What's more, it would increase inequalities, right? Imagine if only rich kids get good education, right? And then you have that massive gap in knowledge that's going to persist throughout generations. That's not very good at all. So, the point here is to make sure the market is non-privatized, okay, which we would never suggest it was. So the market just remains unprivatized, and the important thing here is not to have individual investors investing, but governments, okay? Governments have more knowledge when it comes to how to improve the education system. They have the most data, they can survey people on massive scale, and they have the largest amount of investments that they can put into that. Sure, a government may not be able to see things in as much detail as a private investor would, but that again, a private investor would be better suited to something like a scholarship or tutoring or something on a much smaller scale than education reform. Remember, this question is talking about investment in education. We're not talking about investment on a small scale. We're talking about it on the scale of an entire industry. Okay, hopefully that was clear. Now we're going to talk about drinking alcohol. Okay, so alcohol-related crime is quite common. So you get drunk drivers, you get public indecency, and you get some people making really bad decisions under the influence of alcohol. So alcohol in itself is not a great thing when it comes to crime. So what's our solution? Well, what appears to be a no-brainer in this case is to actually sort of just regulate alcohol consumption. And that is generally what we will do. We could put a market on making noise for alcohol, but that market would be quite bad because we wouldn't have enough information to sort of sustain it. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of impose this regulation on alcohol. Okay? So the market failure here, what was the market failure? Let me read my notes. Here it is. Oh wait, hold on. Here we go. In our second scenario, yeah. So the market failure here, so essentially the availability of alcohol is too high. Okay, so if alcohol is too available and therefore it's too easy to sort of get your hands on it and misuse it, essentially. So yeah, I said market failure is the overconsumption of alcohol that leads to disruptive behavior, essentially. So how do we reduce alcohol consumption? Well, if you guys remember, reducing the quantity consumed, okay, means we either have to reduce demand or kind of reduce supply, right? Because if you were, I'm trying to see how you guys look at it. If we reduce supply over here, it kind of shifts back, which is going to increase the price and reduce the demand, increase the price and reduce the quantity demanded. Okay, if we're moving demand back, we're also going to get the same effect, but it's going to reduce in price as well. Now, moving demand back is a different thing. We can't really reduce the demand for alcohol because it's much harder to do that. People really do like alcohol, and reducing demand for it is quite a difficult thing to do. So what we're going to do, and what we can control, is reduce supply. There are two ways I've identified to do this. Obviously, there may be more, but this is two. We have a price floor, and we have a tax option. Now, a price floor says, okay, you can't sell alcohol above this below this price, okay? So say, for example, alcohol was being sold, hold on, let me zoom in on this one. Say alcohol was being sold previously at $5 per fluid ounce or something like that, okay? If we set a price floor of you cannot sell it for $10 per fluid ounce or more, so you have to sell it higher than that. Obviously, we're going to see this massive oversupply, okay? Because suppliers are going to see that, oh wow, this is massive for me. I can make more money. They're going to increase their supply, and people demand less, right? So you're going to get this massive oversupply, okay? So basically, you get this massive discrepancy. Of course, we're reducing the quantity demanded, which is the main objective here. Now, the other option, which is possibly the better one, is the taxation option. So we're going to say, if you buy alcohol, you're going to get taxed this much for that alcohol. Now, depending on the size of the tax, it'll have different defectivities. So if you guys can imagine, if you're buying like biscuits, and they put like a tax of 10 pence on a biscuit, on the packet of biscuits, then it's just like, oh, an extra 10 pence. I'm not really going to care that much. So people aren't going to really care when it comes to small taxes. But if I said like, okay, a bag of biscuits, a bag of biscuits? Like, what is it, a tin? Or they're tubes, right? Never mind. But if I said like this entire packet of biscuits is an extra £3, I'm just going to be like, no, I'm not going to buy that. So that's going to shift supply a lot as well. So as you can sort of see here, with tax, the supply curve is being shifted. Instead of us moving up the price, the supply curve gets shifted because suppliers now know that, okay, less people are going to demand our product with this tax, so we need to shift over our supply to adjust for that. Hypothetically, you could say this with a price floor, but also outlining that a tax will be in place soon allows suppliers to sort of adjust their production. Okay, because if I sort of say like, surprise, there's a tax, it doesn't give enough time for suppliers to adjust, or even a price floor. But if I outline this in advance, then it allows for suppliers to adjust. Okay, so as you can see here, at our endpoint, our demand is going to be lower. So we can see that the best government program is to sort of set a sufficiently high tax on alcohol such that the quantity supplied is going to be low enough. Oh, and also, the thing about competition, the problem is, with the current market, alcohol is still being consumed at its current level. Alcohol is still being sold in a competitive market, as you can sort of see in the question. Explain what the consequences would be if a competitive market was left to allocate the resources. Okay? So a competitive market is allocating the resources here already. Okay? Competitive markets are already allocating alcohol to consumers. Okay? So we need to disrupt that. Okay? So basically the moral of the story here is that competitive markets suck. Okay, let me check the time. Okay, we're 11 minutes in. Let's go to question 2. Now. Question 2 is sort of like the independent writing assessment that you guys are going to get later. So, we've got a graph that shows the global oil prices changing significantly over the last 20 years. Okay, so you can see that they've been dropping as low as, like, what is that, $25 per barrel to over 100 and then back down. It's a mess, okay? Now, what this question wants you to do is find 2 scholarly economics articles that discuss the causes of fluctuations in the global oil market in any period since 2000. Use the 2 pieces of scholarly writing to answer the following question in maximum 250 words. What do economists say are the drivers of changing dynamics in the oil market since 2000? And how can their ideas be represented in the dynamic market model discussed in Unit 11.4? Okay, so hold on, let me try something here. I'm just going to quickly try exporting my file into Chrome quickly, just so you guys can see it. Okay, and there. Hopefully, did that work? No, that's the wrong file. One moment. There it is. Okay. Does that view? Can you guys see that? Yeah, you guys can. Okay, cool. So this is this is actually my notes on Unit 11.4. This is in the book as well. So this is my notes on it. So you've got the market volatility of oil. You've got some notes and stuff. I think you guys can see this. I posted a copy of my notes to the chat, yeah. But what's important here is to note that this is sort of the description of the dynamic market model. Okay, so just so you guys know that. Now, the main problem you guys probably will have with this is finding these articles. Now, it says down here how to do this properly. Remember, diagrams, figures, tables, and bibliography will not be counted in the 250 word limit. So you can do all those, it'll be fine. To satisfy the scholarly requirement, the new articles must be published in a peer-reviewed academic journal. You can find a good list here. So this one gives a fairly good list, okay? However, I won't say that all of them are strictly relevant. So, for example, you will get something like the Journal of Political Economy, which doesn't really work, or like a lot of these doesn't really work. Econometrics as well doesn't work. So Econometrics and Econometrica, they will slightly won't have them, but a lot of them do. So how you'd search for them is you would go to the site, as you can sort of see here. Okay, so we have Quarterly Journal of Economics, as you can see here. And then you'd search something like oil prices in the Quarterly Journal. Okay, you can see that it's a high impact factor one. Yep. So you've got tons of stuff here. You've got to make sure that they are published before 2000. No, ignore that. Then you got to make sure that they're published after 2000, or at least in the middle. Okay. Remember, this is referring to prices after the year 2000. Okay. So you can see here that articles published in 1984 or 1997 or 1951. None of these are going to work. None of these are going to work. This one might work, but it's not relevant. This one might work, but it's not relevant. Again, they're not great. Okay? So I wouldn't actually recommend most of these. I would recommend a few. So this is what I've been using. This is the National Bureau of Economic Research. It is an American one. But given that the oil prices is generally worldwide, we can sort of take it as it goes. Now, if I search oil price changes in here, you guys can get quite a lot as well. So as you can sort of see here, you've got a lot of different search results. Which one did I use? I used one by some person in 2008, I think. Oh, I did 2008. Yeah, I think it was this one. Understanding crude oil prices. Or was it Understanding Crude Oil Prices? Let me check my work. It is. So I used this paper here. Now, reading through papers like these can be quite dense, okay? As you can see, it's 46 pages, and most of you guys aren't going to understand a lot of this, so I don't blame you, because it's quite like, oh god, right? But, thankfully, in most papers you do not need to read the entire thing. In the vast majority of economic papers, reading the entire thing is a terrible idea. Here's a good idea. Read the abstract. This paper examines factors responsible for changes in crude oil prices. Great. We know what it's about. We know it's relevant. So it also says it reviews statistical behavior, relates these predictions of theory, and looks in details at the features of petroleum demand and supply. So we have OPEC, it's saying, resource depletion, stuff like that. Good stuff. Now, you want to go into the introduction to really get at a bit more. So the abstract, sort of think of the abstract as sort of like a little, like a snack, like a bit of bread at dinner, you know, just like have a bit of bread before it starts. Now, the introduction is sort of like a starter, you know? This is the little bit of the main thing before you get started. Actually, as a matter of fact here, it tells you a lot of good stuff. So, for example, on the supply side, we note problems with interpreting OPEC as a traditional cartel and with cataloguing intermediate-term supply prospects despite the very long developmental lead times in the industry. Okay? So you can also relate to this in stuff later. Okay? So you've got a lot of different stuff. Of course, I actually focused on demand with this specific paper. So you can also see price elasticity of demand is challenging to measure, but appears to be quite low, relating to income inelasticity. No, sorry. It just relates to price inelasticity. So it's not very elastic. And we also see income elasticity here. So this is a good paper to use. Okay? Now for my other papers... Oh dear, hold on. Was that even... I don't think that was... No, that didn't stream, did it? No, it didn't. Hold on. Oh, damn it. Did that stream? There! Oh, for God's sake. Okay, let's just forget that any of that ever happened. So, yeah. Where is the document? There it is. Okay, so I don't know how much of you guys saw what I did there. So we've got crude oil prices, yeah, and we've got this article here with this big old abstract over here, and we've got a lovely introduction that tells you everything you need to know. Okay? Now for my next one, I used Vox EU, which I believe is one suggested in the homework. Also, just quickly... Oh, wait, hold on. I need to switch this again. Oh, no! Where is this? There it is. I would recommend that you don't use Economics Observatory, because it's not very relevant. I don't think they have any articles, if any relevant ones, on oil prices, so don't use those. But use whatever. Like, NBER is very good. Now I just want to go into Vox EU. So you have that one. Actually, I should really make sure everything's in the same tab. One moment. Just make sure. I'm just going to put all this stuff back in. And where's the other one? Where have you gone? There. Okay. There we go. So we have Yeah, Vox EU, which is the main thing. So you have a lot of stuff here. You can search in that top bar there, oil price changes, and you'll get a lot of different articles. Let me just, yeah, as you can sort of see here, you've got a lot of different stuff. You've got tons of stuff, really. Obviously, you want to be searching for something related to oil price changes over, before the year, before 2000. I've actually found an article on an oil price shock of 2014 where the price declined by 44%. That's quite a useful, sorry, I've got a bubble in my throat. It's quite a useful resource there. In relating to the actual question, oh god, we have, this is my question. So we want to be very short. Remember, this is 250 words like question, so you are not writing an essay. You are absolutely not writing an essay, okay? Also, your citations should look something like this. So you should have your name, so the name of the person who did it, the dates that it was written, the title of whatever they've published, who it was published by, just the word online, where it's available, the link, and when you accessed it. Okay. Note here that the thing is, with the oil market, you have an inelastic demand, okay, and you have a fairly high income elasticity of demand. So inelastic demand means that whenever there is going to be a supply change, there's going to be a quite hefty price change, is the main thing. Okay, you can sort of see this here. You've got that inelastic demand curve. So whenever there's going to be a supply shift, that supply is going to move over quite quickly. Yeah? So you've got that, the price is going to change quite quickly due to that inelastic price elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand also shows that one of the main drivers of demand in the oil market is development and industrial development and country development. Basically, if you have a lot of developing countries, oil prices are going to be much higher than if most countries are already developed. Because it's like a spurring on thing for... I'm still looking at my fucking face. Kind of spurs on the sort of the development of an economy. Now, for supply, you want to recognize OPEC. Now, OPEC, which I wasted my word limit on, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is an oligopoly, and it's controlling basically a large amount of the supply. Okay, so given that a lot of power is centered in only a few countries here, if one country is going to fail when it comes to supply, that kind of shock is going to trickle. Okay, and if one country increases its supply, everybody, and I mean everybody, is going to have to increase their price, which is going to basically break the market. So think about, and I've included the graph in my question, and I think you guys should probably too. Imagine if the supply curve banks to the left, because you've got sort of say we have a reduction in supply. That supply curve is going to shift to the left, which because of the inelastic demand curve, the price is going to skyrocket very quickly. Okay. Moreover, if you have a glut, or like especially what happened in 2014, where Saudi Arabia was producing too much oil because the price was too high, supply is going to shift to the right, and then the demand, the price is going to drop. Okay. So that's essentially what's happening. Okay. Of course, remember to cite your sources within there. Okay, let's just look over the homework again. Reference your sources appropriately and make sure you appropriately cite ideas and any information used from the sources. Make sure make the period that you and the authors of your two pieces of writing are discussing clear. So remember, your authors are discussing a clear point here. So remember, these authors, I just clearly discussed that they're discussing they're clearly discussing the 2014 supply shock. And in this case, you've got an author discussing things kind of in general. So we're not specifying what date they're doing things. Okay, I believe that's everything. Yeah, I guess I will leave you guys to do this. Yeah, sorry again, it's a little late. I've kind of been, but yeah, I hope you guys find this helpful, and yeah, see ya. Well, this will be the last week for a while, wouldn't it? It's going to be a while until you guys get another video. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys later. Bye.